Here's a sentence that sounds completely backwards. The highest earner in your office might never retire. Meanwhile, someone making half their income could be done working by 45. Same city, same economy, same number of years, completely different endings. Picture two coworkers. One earns $150,000 a year but somehow always feels broke. Bigger house, new SUV every few years. Vacations financed with credit cards, every raise disappears before it even hits their account. The other earns $80,000. Nothing special, no lottery ticket, no startup exit, no rich parents. But one day, while everyone else is sitting in traffic on a Tuesday morning, they're making coffee at home with nowhere they need to be. No alarm clock, no meetings, no boss, no commute. What separates those two people isn't luck. It's one number, and once you understand it, you'll never think about money the same way again. My name is Alex, and I spend way too much time studying personal finance, investing, and why some people quietly achieve financial freedom decades before everyone else. Most people assume early retirement is only for tech millionaires or people who got incredibly lucky. But that's not how it works. The reality is much more boring, and that's exactly why it works. Because boring math beats exciting dreams almost every single time. Let's start with the number that actually determines your retirement date. Your savings rate, not your income, not your job title, not how expensive your house is. Your savings rate is simply the percentage of your income that you keep and invest instead of spending. And this 1% changes everything. Imagine two people who both take home $60,000 per year. Person A spends $54,000 and invests $6,000. That's a 10% savings rate. Person B spends $30,000 and invests $30,000. That's a 50% savings rate. Same income, same economy, same opportunities, completely different futures. At a 10% savings rate, you're looking at roughly 5 decades of work before financial independence becomes realistic. At 50%, that timeline can shrink to less than 20 years. Think about how insane that is. The difference between working until your late 60s and retiring in your 40s isn't necessarily earning more money. It's deciding how much of your income you're willing to keep. And here's the beautiful part. Every dollar you don't spend works twice. First, it becomes an investment. Second, it reduces the amount of money you'll need forever. Let's say you stop spending $5,000 per year. That $5,000 can now be invested, but you've also lowered your future lifestyle expenses by $5,000 annually. You've moved closer to the finish line while simultaneously making the finish line smaller. That's why spending less is so powerful. Now, let's talk about the target. How much money do you actually need? For decades, investors have relied on something called the 4% rule. The idea is simple. Take your annual expenses and multiply them by 25. If you spend $40,000 per year, your target becomes $1 million. Spend $60,000 per year, and your target becomes $1.5 million. The logic is that you can withdraw roughly 4% per year while allowing your investments to continue growing. But there's something most financial influencers conveniently ignore. The 4% rule was originally designed for traditional retirees. People retiring around age 65, not people trying to quit work at 45. If you're retiring 20 years earlier, your money needs to survive much longer. That's why many modern researchers suggest using a slightly more conservative withdrawal rate closer to 3.5%. And lever number 3 is investing the difference. That's it. No magic, no secret strategy, no hidden wealth building hack. Just those 3 levers. The biggest obstacle isn't usually income, it's lifestyle inflation. You've probably experienced it yourself. You get a raise, for about 3 weeks, you feel richer. Then somehow your spending catches up. Maybe it's a nicer apartment, maybe it's a new car, maybe it's eating out more often. Whatever it is, the extra money disappears. And you're back where you started. This is why some people making 6 figures still live paycheck to paycheck. Every increase in income gets matched by an increase in lifestyle. The finish line never gets closer. They're running faster on a treadmill that's speeding up at the same rate. Financial freedom requires doing the opposite. When your income rises, your savings should rise faster. That's how the gap starts widening. And that gap is where wealth is created. Now, let's talk about something nobody likes hearing. The beginning is painfully slow. The first $10,000 feels impossible. The first $50,000 takes forever. Even the first $100,000 can feel frustratingly slow. Because in the early stages, almost all your growth comes from your own contributions. Your investments aren't doing much yet. You're carrying the entire load. But eventually something changes. The snowball gets big enough to help push itself. Your investments begin generating meaningful returns. Then those returns start generating returns. And suddenly, the growth curve bends upward. Their portfolio starts earning more money than they can personally contribute. The machine finally starts working on its own. Imagine waking up and realizing your investments grew by $20,000 this year. Not because you worked overtime, not because you got promoted, not because you started another side hustle, simply because your money was working while you slept. That's when the game changes. But there's another question people always ask. Alex, what about retirement accounts? Don't I have to wait until I'm almost 60 to access that money? Not necessarily. There are completely legal ways many early retirees access retirement funds before traditional retirement age. Methods like Roth conversion strategies, taxable brokerage accounts, and other withdrawal techniques allow people to bridge the gap. Ignoring that expense can turn a great plan into a terrible surprise. Which brings us back to our two coworkers, the high earner and the moderate earner. The high earner wasn't losing because they lacked income. They were losing because every raise became another expense. The moderate earner wasn't winning because they earned more. They were winning because they kept more. One person bought a larger lifestyle, the other bought freedom, and freedom compounds just like money does. The truth is, most people focus on the wrong number. They obsess over salary, they compare incomes. Maybe you retire at 45, maybe it's 55. Maybe it's simply having the ability to walk away from a job you hate without panicking. That's the real goal, not escaping work. Creating options. The people who achieve financial freedom aren't usually the smartest people in the room. They're rarely the highest earners. They simply understand one thing most people never learn. Wealth isn't built by what you earn. So this week, calculate your savings rate, not your salary, not your net worth, just the percentage of your income you're keeping. Because that number tells you more about your financial future than almost anything else. And once you know it, you'll finally know where you're headed.